Welcome, everyone. My name is Azza Sultan. I am the Middle East and North Africa Program Advisor at Outright. I go by she, her, and it's my great pleasure and honor to welcome you today to Out Summit third day and our panel titled Building Better Future for LBQT Women and Intersex People. This panel will focus on discussing issues concerning LBQT women and intersex people who have historically been and often continue to be overshadowed by cis men in the overall LGBTQI movement. Panelists will share their experiences, lessons learned, and the best practices they have come across the movement in mobilizing resources, in conducting advocacy and expressing solidarity, specifically for advancing more inclusive and empowering future for LBQT women and intersex people around the globe. Before we start, I just wanted to mention, if you have any issues with interpretation, please send a message to host and panelist in the chat box, and we will send you a link that you can use to access the Zoom webinar directly. And I'm sorry in advance for that technical problem. Today's panel is exciting because we are going to delve deeper into important issues with fighters and comrade activists from around the world. We are very honored to be joined by Sheena Magenya, a queer African writer and a mother who is interested in the relationship between feminism, sex, sexuality, pleasure, and power in the lives of African women and LBQT people. She holds a master's in creative writing from the University of Witwatersrand in 2018 and a Bachelor of Arts degree in journalism and psychology from University of Namibia in 2008. Sheena has over a decade of working experience in social justice movement and organization across Africa. She worked at various feminist and LBQT right organizations across Africa and currently coordinates projects that address online gender-based violence within the Women's Rights Program at the Association for Progressive Communication. We also have She goes by she and her. She's an intersex activist from Eastern Europe who has been active in the movement since 2015. We have Jannat Ali, an MBA gold medalist, Pakistani trans woman, and have performing art research degree. She is the first transgender activist and executive director of Track T, trans-led community-based organization working for trans right advocacy and capacity building. Jannat has organized the first trans pride in Pakistan in December 2018, and she has successfully run a literacy program as an educator and consultant regarding basic education of transgender people by mobilizing and motivating the community members. She is a professional Kathak dancer with more than 8 years experience and is one of the 6 transgender women who worked as an actress in a theater play called The Third Tune, based on real stories of transgender persons, which has been performed in Lahore, Islamabad, and the United States at Yale and University of Texas. She has conducted lectures and workshops in Denmark and has synthesized 400 students and teachers on gender diversity and norms and performing arts. Jannat also the first Muslim transgender person to have conducted khutbah during Friday prayers at the Queer Muslim Conference in South Africa. And she has also won the Queen Air in 2015 and the Best Activist in 2016. Jannat was one of the key people who presented the bill, which has been passed and become transgender rights law in Pakistan in 2018. Currently, she is nominated for South Asia biggest trans Hero Award. And finally, we have Maria Shodin, outright acting executive director. And prior to becoming acting executive director, Maria served as outright deputy executive director, leading the work of the development and communication team. And in this position, they oversaw a period of extraordinary growth in visibility, diversification, and increase in funding, in addition to launching groundbreaking initiatives such as outright COVID-19 Global LGBTQI Emergency Fund, and pioneering engagement with international businesses. So for those of you who may be new to Outright, I would like to introduce my colleague Maria to tell us more about Outright and its engagement around LBQT women and intersex people issues. Maria, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, Azza. So I know many of you already know Outright, but if you don't, we're a 31-year-old organization focused on fighting for the human rights of LGBTIQ people everywhere. And we do so through issuing groundbreaking research, advocacy, which is our way of trying to change law and policy and the way that things work around the world. And we do this at both national and regional and international levels. And we also resource the movement, because without our global movement, change can't happen. So working in partnership with organizations and providing resources for them is a key part of the way that Outright works. Outright is a feminist organization and has a priority on intersectional work. And so we've had a focus on LBQ women in parts of our work for a very long time. And I think that I've been in so many conversations over the years about how parts of our movement have been so invisible, even though we talk about us as an LGBTIQ movement. And I think that what I've seen over the last couple of years is that it's gradually starting to change. I think maybe for such a long time, our movement had such a focus on HIV and AIDS that other issues and populations outside of men who have sex with men were not given enough priority. But I'm happy to see that that is, in my opinion, I'm starting to see the signs of that change, which doesn't, and I think it's like, you know, many of you might have seen this image of like, you know, when you grant rights to more people, it doesn't take away rights from other people. It's not a pie that you have to share. If you give a slice to someone, someone else gets a smaller slice. It's actually, there is room for all of us. And I mean, throughout our 31-year-old history, Outright has proudly identified as feminist and taken leadership in a number of different spaces, from co-hosting the first lesbian tent at the 1995 World Conference on Women in Beijing, to launching a new program this year called Empower. And the idea of the Empower program is we have three objectives. Support LBQ women to further step into leadership roles within the global LGBTIQ and women's rights movement. And one of the ways we're going to do it is we're launching a mentorship program, inviting 100 LBQ women to join. We want to strengthen LBQ priorities in law and public policy, with a focus, of course, on feminist and human rights-based policies. And one of the ways that you'll see this over the next 3 years is we're going to commission a series of thought leadership papers. We're going to have an incubator small grants program to enable groups to work on these issues. And we, of course, want to increase the visibility of LBQ women in international human rights mechanisms and civil society spaces. We know, and we have some joining us here today, we have really great leaders from around the world, and we want to use our platform to invite and provide more spaces for that visibility. And of course, I also want to say, just in case anyone thought there was any confusion about it. I mean, I may use the term LBQ women here when I'm speaking right now, and that is in the most inclusive possible sense. None of our communities are isolated. There's, of course, a lot of overlap. A trans woman, of course, can also be part of the LBQ community. And it's not like you have either a sexual orientation or a gender identity. Like we have both, or leaving the binary, we have all. So these are some of our ambitions with the Empower program. And I also just want to quote, there was some great research that came out just I think it was last year, by Mama Cash in Australia that mapped the access to funding for LBQ groups. And really the conclusion was that there is way too little funding. Of course, there's not enough funding for LGBTIQ work overall. Of course, we need to increase that amount of funding. But even in that pot, that it's not big enough as it is, they tracked that only 5% was specifically identified as directed to LBQ issues and communities. And so all of these things have to change. And I think as a movement that in many places have had successes with what we have pushed for, I think we have an opportunity here as a movement to push and also educate funders, including governments, on the issues that we need them to address. So I'll stop there for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria. This is a very inclusive background about the work that Outright is doing, and hopefully we will continue to do more amazing work related to LBQT, women and intersex issues. I am gonna come to you next. In the recent years, the awareness of intersex people and the recognition of specific human rights abuses that they face has grown, thanks to the work of intersex human rights defenders such as UI. So please tell us, as an intersex advocate who has been actively involved in the movement in the Eastern Europe since 2015, how do you navigate working in these issues in such an unsafe environment, and how your work impact the global intersex movement?
That's a great question. Thank you so much, Azza. And thank you, Azza and Maria and everyone at Outright. It's really fantastic to be here, especially with such amazing co-speakers. I feel really honored. And I am really sorry that my camera is off and that I'm being anonymous here today, because even though I am very publicly out as intersex, unfortunately, as a recognizable face for the intersex movement in my country, in Eastern Europe. Unfortunately, with my country being quite homophobic and having actually like homophobic laws, in order to protect the safety of members of our intersex community, I decided to stay anonymous here to not put their lives and their safety in danger. And yeah, the intersex movement, wow, where do I even start? So the I in LGBTI and the sex characteristics in SOGESC, intersex movement is quite young when you compare it to other letters of the acronym. And yeah, you know, intersex people for so many years have been silenced and kept in the dark about their bodies, and our bodies literally cut by surgeons into the binary to make our bodies fit into like what society sees like a man or a woman should be like. And you know, only with like, I would say, the invention of the internet in like early 90s, people could finally start finding each other, just like with the anonymity that internet provides. And slowly people could join together and start fighting for our human rights. which has led to the amazing, growing, fantastic, blooming intersex movement that it is existing right now and achieving so many things. But in many countries, for example, in Europe, in Eastern Europe, there is either no intersex movement or like just one person that we know, or like a very young movement. For example, how it is in my country. The movement only started in 2013, and I joined in 2015 when I found out that I'm intersex. And I saw that in my language, in the Cyrillic alphabet, there was really little information on intersex. And what was there was, you know, very outdated and pathologized medical information. And there was almost no information that, hey, people like this exists, it's fine. And you have human rights that are often violated, you know, but there is nothing to be ashamed of. So I did not identify as an activist at first, but I slowly started translating resources, creating resources myself, finding out more people. And over the years, we have become quite successful in awareness raising, community building. We have now a big community. Before the pandemic, we were doing community meetings. It was really, really great. We've done shadow reports to some UN committees. But yeah, unfortunately, with the political situation in my country, we don't really see right now realistic the main goal of the intersex movement, which is banning the non-vital, medically unnecessary surgeries on intersex children. So yeah, for now, we are focusing on what we can do. And what is great about intersex movement that we are very well connected. I have amazing friends from all around the world, from so many countries. And finding out that I'm intersex really changed my life and made me so much happier. It was the best thing that happened to me in my life. Yeah, I just wish that I found out earlier, that the truth wasn't kept from me. And yeah, but intersex movement is growing, and I know we will win one day. And it's incredibly important to have amazing allies like you. And yeah, intersex movement is also very much underfunded, definitely, but we are growing. So yeah, I'm really glad to be here. If you have any follow-up questions, let me know, because yeah, I started kind of very broad. So let me know if I should say something more specific. Thank you.
Thank you so much, I mean, this is really inspiring, and maybe it's a reminder for all of us in the movement to understand that there is people who are still working under very harsh environments, and they have to be invisible, yet they're doing great work and they are fighting for the cause, and that's really amazing. Thank you so much, thank you so much for the great work you're doing for the intersex movement in Eastern Europe, but also globally. So next, I'm gonna come to you, Jannat. So Jannat, you are one of the pioneers who led the trans rights movement in Pakistan and contributed to the passing of the trans bill in 2018. I mean, in addition to your work at the local level, you also have great involvement in the trans movement in both regional and global level. So please tell us more about your work and its impact. How can artivism contribute to the advancing and promoting of human rights of transgender people?
Hello, everyone. Thanks Outright for giving me this great opportunity to raise my voice and to make this platform inclusive. That's really important. And before I start saying anything, I want to wish you all happy International Human Rights Day. Today is a very important day, and we are talking about our rights and claiming our spaces. So this was the reason, you know, when I was a kid, I always used to see my community very vulnerable, full of challenges, and parents not accepting them and living life with a lot of pain. So from the childhood, I dedicated and promised that in my life, I'll come as a role model. I don't want to have that sympathies. I want to come as a strong and powerful community member who can break all the stereotypes. And I'm really lucky and humble that I've been successful in facing a lot of challenges. And this movement didn't start from me. I never call myself pioneer. Thank you for acknowledging, but I always remember my great leaders who started this movement years ago. Without them, I think they were the one who put it these seeds, and we are the one who are giving water to this plant. So, that's really important to acknowledge your leaders. Here in Pakistan, every day is a new challenge. For LGBTQ people, we cannot use the word LGBT here. We are not safe. We have Section 377. So, all movement is working under transgender umbrella. We had huge and rich history in which trans people were there in the key position. They were the only people who were allowed to go in male harem and female harem in the Mughal time. And they were those who were high on the key position on strategic decision making. And people used to send their children to learn etiquettes, and they were in the army as well. So you can imagine there was a huge, movement before the British colonial law. So after British colonial law came, our whole dignity and respect, it was lost. There was a criminal tribal act which were arresting a lot of trans people, feminine, gay people, and the artists, and there were a huge, punishment against that. But after that, indigenous cultures and everything that was introduced, like we have hijra culture, and we have khwajasra culture, in which we build our own families. If our parents throw us away, so we create our own families, so at least we can have enabling and safe spaces for our community. So our gender recognition started in 2009, when we were given right to have a ID card. But the problem was, the prerequisite to have identity card was to bring your parents who can come, but no parents were ready. So then they introduced the medical terminology. So in 2017, we, with a lot of activists, came forward, claim our spaces. And you won't believe us that we were not allowed to it was about transgender rights bill which was going to present, and they were not ready to include transgender. Other persons were there to take decisions about our lives, about our identities. So we did strike, and thank God we spent all money from our own pockets. We did not have proper funding and all that, but we had that passion that we were traveling here and there, spending our whole cost. Being an artist, I spent all whatever I earned through my performing art just to have this legislation and making life of my community member easy. So at that time, we even did have, a lot of sensitized community member, and their capacity wasn't built from trans community. So at that time, feminists and LBQ women, as a lawyer, they joined hands with us, and they were there to use the legal language which we can later on present. So we introduced them with our dynamics, with our own language, which we speak, which is common in South Asia, that is called Farsi. That this language was developed to secure ourselves from the punishment in British colonial law. And now it's spoken in all South Asian countries, like in Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, if you just move in Nepal as well. So it's so beautiful that we have our enriched culture, and we have our own language, we have our own tradition. Now the challenges, as you said, that I've been talking on international level as well. I truly agree with Maria that it's really important to make this movement global. A lot of time people of color and people who are belonging from such hostile environment, like here, like in my country, so we are left behind. Most of time we are not included. Even our representation is very less. So all the time we have to face challenge, claim our spaces. But I'm really happy that I'm thinking it's getting better, but it needs to be more inclusive. We need to give more spaces to indigenous community member, intersectionality, about different culture, about different type of trans, within different diverse background. That's really important to give them space, because here people, when I we were working on law, so we were a lot of people were saying that transgender, there should be education for transgender. I know I'm an educated transgender, that's why I'm speaking here. But when we went on grassroots level, the people did not have proper food to eat for two times. They didn't have, their challenges are very basic challenge. They didn't have roof, they didn't have home, they didn't have food to eat. So they said if they won't have food in their stomach, how they will go and get education? If they don't have roof, they didn't have home, how they can go? So still here in Pakistan, in my country, we are struggling for the basic rights. Even doing pride was very challenging. And it was my wish when I came first time in Copenhagen, then I promised that why we can't have this beautiful moment in our country. So that's how we started. And I promise that one day will come when I'll give opportunity to celebrate. And thanks for sharing that. It brings tears in my eyes. This was the first time ever we were on the roads and we were celebrating our lives, and our senior community members were there and nobody was laughing. We had security, but it was huge struggle. But after that, that struggle, it made me really sad. A lot of people appreciate it, but it's been 2 years. Nobody's ready to support us in the coming years. Last year it was COVID, so I spent my credit card whole amount just to sustain this moment, because otherwise people will think it was just for one time and it will be a dead moment. So I really looking forward. This year we are going to do Pride in any cost on 19th December. I'm really looking for global support. Let's make this movement very progressive and inclusive, and show us that our family members, doesn't matter wherever they are living, we are together. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jannat. You are really an amazing activist and a human being, and I think it's great that you've been following the footstep of our leaders, creating our own culture and own language to empower our people. And also, I thank you for shedding the light on the situation of the transgender people in Pakistan, because I think lots of people think that's because of the bill that has been passed 3 years ago. That's the situation. Everybody in Pakistan is living a happy life, easy life, and they fully have their rights. So it's very important for our audience here to understand that there is a lot to be done. And there is a lot to we expect from allies and friends to support people like you. So thank you so much for the great work you've been doing all these years. So now I think it's time to come to you, Sheena. So as one who has extensive experience in working with Pan-African queer movement, as well as the intersection of social justice with media and communication, could you tell us more about your work and how it contributes to build a feminist internet that enhance safe access to information on risk, threats, and digital rights among LBQT women and intersex people?
Thank you so much, Azza, for this question. And thank you to the Outright team and the Outright Summit for having me in this space. I feel greatly honored to be able to speak about the work that I have been able to contribute to, along with many other collectives of LBQT and intersex people. Like Azza said, I work for the Association for Progressive Communications, but before that, I worked within LBQT and intersex movements in East and Southern Africa. In my work at the Association for Progressive Communications, I work at the intersection of technology and feminism and human rights. And when I try to look at the work that I did before, which was specifically around policy advocacy communications for LBQT and intersex rights, and now I look at the work that I do at the intersection of technology, I see a certain almost pattern, but also I see a very important moment of confluence between the work I did and the work I do now. The internet has over the years been a pivotal space for advocating for LBQT and intersex rights in Africa and the world. And the Women's Rights Program at the Association for Progressive Communications in 2014 gathered feminists and cross-issue activists from all over the world to imagine what a feminist internet could be. This work has grown and it has developed into an evolving and shape-shifting set of values that are called the feminist principles of the internet, which help us navigate our way through the online and the offline continuum. It's important in every space that we, Black, African, Brown, non-white, LBQT, and intersex people make louder the power and potential of technology in shaping and shifting our lived realities. Access to the internet and other technologies, access to the internet and other technologies are no longer a luxury or a tool. They are the fiber of who we are. The idea that we have offline lives and online lives, and that our online lives can just be switched off. The idea that the violence that we experience online is not real. The idea that when somebody sends you something offensive on your social media channels, that you can just turn it off, or you can just delete it and get on with your life is as unrealistic as it is to experience harm on your person, on your body, and somebody telling you, well, just move. It's not that simple. Online is where we have created communities, we have found language. Online is where we have started moments and movements. The online space continues to be an important frontline for a lot of the activism that we do, and it's pivotal in especially building cross-issue but also cross-border geographical alliances. It is coming together at a summit like this, where I listen to Jannat's story and I listen to I's story, and I see how I could be in Pakistan and would be experiencing the same thing as a queer person, as an intersex person, as a trans person. That there's a certain similarity in our lived realities, that conversing and reaching out across, using technology across the internet, whether in summits, whether in conversations, Zoom calls, groups, that shows us that our experiences are not solitary. And so when somebody tells you that, oh, it's quite unfortunate that you've experienced a certain kind of violence online and maybe you should log off, it's not so simple. Otherwise, we would all just log off and go. But there's a deep value and a deep need that is met when we connect with other people online that must be protected. And it becomes even important when I think about the work that I used to do when I worked at the Coalition of African Lesbians. There was an important political moment where the Coalition of African Lesbians, after many years, had applied for observer status at the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. In 2015, the observer status was granted, and then in 2018, it was revoked, basically taking away the right of LBQT and intersex people to hold states accountable for human rights violations that we were experiencing, or that we continue to experience on the continent. When I went looking for this story online, a lot of it is missing. And this is not unlike the same kind of erasure that happens when colonialists and certain kind of hegemonic religions arrived on the African continent and completely erased any kind of queer or LGBTIQA identities, cultures, practices, traditions that we had, and replaced them with the idea that we live in a binary world. You're a man, you are a woman, and all we have to live off is heterosexist and patriarchal ideas of existence. The same kind of erasure, as I've found now, is happening online, where certain important parts of our histories online as LBQT and intersex people are being taken away, meaning that the memory that we have of important political moments now reside in our memories, in our heads. And this for me becomes a very important moment to say where we have to be aware of what stories and what narratives about our lives are being dominated online. Yeah, and so another important thing I thought worth speaking to is why was the Women's Rights Program at the Association for Progressive Communications talking about a feminist internet? At its very core, feminism interrogates power, and a feminist internet is one that interrogates power, and who holds it, who has it. Right now, similar to the offline world, a lot of the influence and power and narratives and decision making is held by white, Western, cis, able-bodied, heteronormative, heterosexual men. And this then means that in and of itself, the internet is white and cis and ableist and heteronormative. But we have frontline defenders in this very, very volatile, very easily controlled space, especially by states and corporations who always work together to surveil, to censor, to silence, to take down ideas that try to force the spectrum into a binary reality. And so it is important in the work that we do to recognize that activists, LBQT activists, LGBTIQA activists, intersex people, bodies, ideas online are inhabiting a very important frontline. And these are human rights defenders who are holding strong a space that is vastly overrun and overtaken by a lot of hate and violence and homophobia and racism. And to always remember that the internet is not a tool alone. The internet is a space for the continuation of our lived realities. So I think my time is up. So I set an alarm. I was trying to be organized, Azza. So I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheena. I mean, I would listen to you for hours and hours. I mean, thank you so much for the great work that you're doing. I think we often, live in this illusion that our offline life is separated from our online life, and I think it's very important for people to understand that there is a lot of things that we need to do to make sure that our online life is safe and inclusive, and we introduce concepts like feminist internet because we want to make sure that we not only connect people from global south to the northern hemisphere and so on, but we want to make sure that we are connecting in safe and inclusive environment. Thank you so much, Sheena. So I'm gonna now ask a question for all of the panelists, and each one of you can just feel free to jump in. So my question is that we all know that the LBQT women and intersex people around the globe, they face excuse me, they face a lot of obstacles and challenges in their daily lives. We have problems with the shrinking of safe spaces, inclusive spaces. We have problem with the lack of funding, the homophobia, transphobia, the anti-gender ideology, as well as also the internal conflicts within the big umbrella of the LGBTQI movement. So from your point of view, what are the best ways and strategies to overcome these challenges and to build broad alliances and partnership with other human rights movements, such as feminist movements, women rights defenders, to advance advocacy effort for our cause? I don't know who want to jump.
Can I?
Go ahead, Jannat.
Yeah. So I think recently, Azza, this situation is very unpredictable. Doesn't matter wherever we are living, you will always heard about, homophobia and transphobia cases. So recently, after doing a lot of efforts, our Trans Right Act has been challenged by some of the, transphobic male group who don't want to see women empowerment. They were against the Women March, and now they have challenged the Transgender Protection Right Act, and they are enforcing for the medical, checkup, medical proof that you are real trans or not. But our legislation, which was passed in 2018, it was about self-perceived gender identity. So, every time there are a lot of challenges which are putting our lives at risk, and these people are so transphobic and homophobic that they are saying that, we are trying to introducing LGBTQ agenda and all that under transgender law. Because in Pakistan, we under trans umbrella give spaces to all marginalized communities, intersex, and all community members, just to be on the safe side, because safety comes first, then comes, later other things. If they are not safe, then how you can have respect, dignity, jobs, good future and all. So safety is the biggest concern. So just to be on the safe side, we are doing a lot of activism through art. So that's why I use artivism, by combining activism, your advocacy through performing arts, through paintings and all. So because people sometimes they are not ready to listen us, because the art is very beautiful way that we can say a lot of things through our performance, through our gestures, through our pictures and all that. So artivism we are currently using, but we are also trying to introduce sensitized media, so they don't use this bad false information and negative image. As Sheena said, it's not the solution just to log off. And that's really important, to come up with strategy and, in a beautiful way that you can sensitize the people who are not ready to accept us.
Thank you so much.
Sorry.
No. Thank you so much, Jannat. Please jump in.
Yeah, thanks so much, Azza. I just wanted to continue, and I really liked how Jannat said about people who don't accept us. And, this really reminds me that we are all really on one side, and it is scary when you see the uprise of TERFs and anti-gender movement, and it's so crazy to see people who, for example, have a problem with trans people getting gender affirming treatment, but at the same time they have no problem with intersex babies receiving non-vital unconsented cosmetic surgeries done on just psychosocial basis, with no medical necessity or anything, just because the societal norms say that a penis or a clitoris should be this long, so yeah, just understanding that the human rights and the acceptance and celebration of diversity makes us all on one side. And it's especially easy to forget during the COVID pandemic, because apart from all the impact and the financial and the lives being lost, and all the impact on people in LGBTIQ community, also the impact of working from home and all of that, I know personally for myself, I kind of really lose the bigger picture and like why I'm doing all of this, I kind of get really focused on like day-to-day stuff, like, oh, I send this email, I do this work, and I go to bed, and like I really forget like why we're in this. And I think just like opportunities like today, by really getting together and listening to each other and remembering what we want and why we're doing this, it is very important. And yeah, like what we want actually, like as intersex activists, it is so simple, you know, to allow the child, even if their body is different in a little bit, if there is no medical necessity, and usually there is no medical risk at all, just let the child grow up as they are and let them tell you how they identify, what is their gender identity, and what they themselves want to do with their own body. And you know, I am a person from whom the truth about my body and the things that were done to me and the surgeries were kept secret from me for many, many years. And I have had so much shame and self-hatred inside of me, because you know, when somebody finds something, you know, too horrible to tell you, you will still feel it, you know, subconsciously, and you will be ashamed, because then there must be a reason to keep it secret. And only discovering the truth is what led me to finally allow myself to love myself and my body. And yeah, when I discovered that it was kept secret from me on purpose, at first I didn't know how to live. And only learning the stories of other intersex people, what kind of brought me back to life, because I learned that from so many of them, so many of us, the truth is being hidden and our bodies are being mutilated and, in quotes, forcibly normalized to fit into the binary norms and binary system. And you know, I realized that I'm not alone, and my story is part of a big problem in our society that not a lot of people know about, and that maybe I can try to do something in order to change it and to save the future generation of intersex children from things that I had to go through myself. And yeah, I'm really, really grateful to have found the truth and have found this amazing community. And yeah, the best moments of my life is when like I meet a new intersex person and they're like, oh my God, like I know you, I've read your story, I've never met any other intersex people, and like their eyes glisten. Or I meet parents with an intersex baby who like received no unnecessary surgeries, and the parents are being honest and respectful with their child and accepting the child as they are. And I get to just hug the baby and know that their life is going to be great and they're just loved and accepted. And yeah, I get to cuddle a cute baby, which is always a plus. So yeah, these are my thoughts. You know, we can do it and we can make people happy and change people's lives. And yeah, I'm just really excited and happy to be doing what I'm doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, This is really touchy, and I think who wouldn't be excited to meet an intersex person or intersex child? Is it's amazing.
Thank you, that's so true.
Yeah, Sheena, would you like to say something?
It's hard to follow and that loveliness and just the wonderful imagery of community and finding each other. But I think something that I learned more about in a previous space is that we, you know, that for instance, the anti-gender rights movement is very well funded and very well organized. There's no two ways about it. We need more money. We need more money, and our work should not be seen as auxiliary to people. I don't think activists should you know, work two jobs during the day and at night that's when you do your activism. I think a lot of the work we are doing to fundamentally shift the way the world is needs to be recognized, and activists, we need more resources, we need more people, we need to start influencing at the level of education, where children grow up knowing that the world is a spectrum and not a binary, where religious institutions recognize that people are not just, you know, sources of resources and power and such things, that governments do what governments are supposed to do: protect all its people, provide healthcare to all its people, ensure that all the rights of all its people are honored and met, and that there is justice and recourse for all people. So we need to push for more funding, for more intentional commitments from states, governments, and, you know, international human rights bodies to ensure that we are well resourced, to do the work that we have to do, because it is work. And I know that it comes from a place of passion, but it is work, and that's also what makes it even harder when rights we've fought so hard for are denied us again and again and again. So it's that we need more.
We need more, and we deserve it. Actually, I cannot think of how many times. I mean, I've been in the movement for more than 10 years, and I cannot think of how many times we get together as an activist and, you know, fighters, and we talk about this. We talk about how much we could achieve if we could just, you know, working full time, you know, for advancing our rights. And I think you're right, Sheena. I think that our enemies are well prepared and well funded. And I think it's also our job to do a lot of advocacy in this area, because some of the people who are against us are against the work that we're doing and our rights. They're also funded by the state government. So it's also, there is a lot of work need to be done here to persuade government to think about it. I mean, why you are supporting people who are homophobic and transphobic and, you know, religious fanatic and so on. So it's also very important to do a lot of advocacy work in this area. Thank you so much. Maria, do you want to add something in this area?
I mean, I think that there are, of course, I agree. I think everyone here has said beautiful things. And I think one thing that we are still fighting for is just this sort of visibility inside and outside of our movement, to ensure that we and the whole spectrum of our communities are heard in all of these different spaces. And I think that is something that it's definitely getting better, but we still need to work on that and make sure that we are heard and present in all of the spaces. And I'm looking forward to sort of having that group of global leaders just be bigger, just be more of us to join in the spaces, so that we can advance all of our rights. Because as you just said, like, we deserve them. We deserve the resources and we deserve the rights.
Thank you so much, Maria. I do agree. I mean, solidarity is our way. I mean, we have to come all together, and we have to understand that we are all connected, and our movement actually get stronger when we work together. So I think that's a key point to our success. So I guess maybe we will open the floor now for some of the questions from the audience. I see some of the questions here. Someone has a question for you, and I see that you have answered some of the questions, but maybe if you want to address to the rest of the audience, someone was asking that they have been trying to do research in intersex males, but it's a struggle, as you mentioned. They're hidden and they're not discussed, and most groups are those who have been assigned female by surgery at early age. So is there anything out there for intersex males? And this person is from UK. So I mean, this is might be also a question that we see a lot of people who are assigned female in the intersex, but maybe the intersex males are not visible. So if you have something to say about that.
Yeah, definitely. Like, for example, I am an intersex woman, but in general, intersex people have all kinds of gender identities, and yeah, we can be any letter of the acronym, really. And yeah, I think that maybe, you know, intersex men, they have also this extra pressure from society, because man has to fit all of these, you know, criteria and all of the like rules of masculinity. So maybe for them it maybe even harder to come out. But no, in our community we have intersex men, non-binary people, people of or all genders and sexualities. And yeah, we have, like, especially like in the Western Europe and in the US, more and more organizations. Like in the UK, for example, you can definitely contact Interconnected UK. There is Intersex UK. In the US, amazing work is done by Interact. And in general, in Europe, for example, you can look for OI Europe, oieurope.org, and OI Europe then could connect you with people or with organizations in your region, because it is really important to know you're not alone and to meet others, and hopefully we could connect you with somebody. So yeah, always know that you're not alone, that you can reach out and yeah, and meet others. And I really hope that after the pandemic is over, we could all once again meet and hug. And yeah, because it's so important to know that there are others like you, that you are beautiful, and yeah, there is nothing to fix, and yeah, intersex people and babies are beautiful as they are.
Thank you so much. I just wanted also to bring your attention, Jannat, that people were, there's a question here that people ask if they can support the Bright event, if they want to donate. I see that you have shared some of the information, but I just
thank you so much.
But I wanted to encourage everybody to reach to Jannat's feed loop.
It's really important to keep our movement alive, because you know, people, when we are getting stronger, you know, there, as Azza you said, there are huge people who are greater in number. They try to break our movement. So being a defender, being a survivor, we have to sustain our movement in any cost. So that's my passion.
Thank you so much. I'm happy that people want to support the Bright event. Is something really amazing, and I think it deserves. And I encourage everybody who want to support the event to reach out to Jannat. We have another interesting question. Claire Wilson asked, what are your reflections on effective ways to tackle the patriarchy in the LGBTQI+ and queer spaces as LBQTI individuals? Very interesting. So, Jannat, you want to say something about that?
I wanted to answer. I think it's really important to show the case study in which if there was a patriarchy, what was the effect in the moment? And you know, that is again important to show the best practices as well, and how the best practices regarding inclusion. And when we say about inclusion, it's not about equality, it's also about equity. That's really important. People don't know the importance of equality and equity both. Sometimes they try to give us equal rights, but they are not ready to give us equal platforms. They are not ready to share the same spaces with the women and LBQ, especially LBQT women. So that's really important to show them best practices, and there should be, I think the numbers really matters. Whenever there are policies, whenever there are big decisions, the numbers really matters, you know. And it's the policies and legislation that all, even the census, if you have seen the past practices, just because of less representation, no proper count. Even here, they were talking about intersex, the people are not visible, the numbers are not there. So that's why there are not policy, not big decision, not more platforms. So that's really important.
Thank you so much, Jannat. Anyone else? I see you not nodding your head, Sheena. So I was just wondering if you have something to say about that.
No. I'm just agreeing with what Jannat's saying. Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
I have a comment on that. I mean, I think it is important. It's like, it benefits all of us if we dismantle patriarchy. And I know there are many gay men in our movement who completely agree with that as well. And so I think it's important for us to, they also need to step up and speak up if there are spaces, and I think we've all been in them, where LGBTQ women and trans people and intersex people are not as visible, or are not given the platforms, or not able, do not have a chance to speak up. We need to make sure that those who have those platforms and those who have the power also speak up and sort of make space. And I think it's, you know, whenever we organize something, I mean, it's not a coincidence whenever you organize an event or you put together a panel of speakers. I'm sure all of us have seen panels where it's, you know, all men, and that happens in the LGBTIQ world as well. It's not, we're not free from patriarchy. And so we have to call it out when it happens, and we have to ask and demand that change. So, I mean, it really has to be all of our work.
Thank you so much, Maria. We have a question for someone is asking about Latin America, Asia, or Africa. Do you know of any support groups or organizations in other language but English? I see you post some of the question, some of the answer to this question, but if you have something to share with the audience. I think also, you know, the idea that the English language is dominant in our work, and most often we are struggling in other regions and areas to find resources in other language other than English. It's a real challenge. So I don't know if you have something to say about that, or if you think there is resources out there.
Yeah, 100% absolutely, because it is a big problem. And for example, I come from a country where we have a Cyrillic alphabet, a completely different language, and a lot of people don't speak English at all. So having resources in your language is very important, and not just like some medicalized resources that say that you're a disorder that doesn't need to be alive, but having human rights-based information is critically important, and information about the fact that there are like support groups and that you're not alone. So yes, definitely. For example, in Asia, there is Intersex Asia, an amazing network organization which organizes and supports people from all around Asia, and organizations as well, like from Mongolia to Singapore. In Latin America, there are amazing organizations like Brújula Intersexual or Justicia Intersex. I apologize for my pronunciation. Yeah, in the US as well, there are great organizations, as well as all around Europe, as well as in Africa. Oh my God, Intersex Nigeria released this year an amazing results of the COVID survey, a report about impact of COVID in Africa, also Intersex South Africa, and so many other great organizations. Like there are so many, I cannot probably like remember all of them. But yeah, all of these organizations have been doing a lot of translation work and making sure that resources are available in different languages. But yeah, unfortunately, still I would say most of intersex activists are volunteers, and still we are so underfunded. But yeah, hopefully it will change in the future. But yeah, there are a lot of great organizations that you can find, and hopefully there is one in your country as well.
Thank you so much. I don't see any more questions, but I encourage the audience to put your questions in the Q&A section. Gonna give a few minutes for more questions if anyone have a question to share with us. Anyone with a very important question coming to our panelists?
I just have to say, I love Claire's comment about queer smashing the patriarchy.
Yes.
I mean, this is what we do, and this is our passion, I guess. I mean, it's one thing that's, I guess, most of the time when I engage with feminists and women human rights defenders who say like, why queer people and trans people are very very passionate about working in dismantling patriarchy and smashing it, and it's like, well, I mean, without doing that, we are not gonna have a life, safe life for us, and a life where we can live with dignity. So
I mean, that is so true. And I think that's why I've been sort of over the last year or two, or whenever we've started seeing some self-proclaimed lesbian feminists attack trans people as part of claiming that, you know, somehow our movement needs to be divided and we would be stronger if we were. I mean, of course, it doesn't make any sense, but I also think it's so important that we speak out against it and highlight it whenever we see it, because dividing our movement and thinking that somehow that's going to be better for anyone really just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
so I think we need to be vigilant. It's like we need to fight the opposition outside of our movement, obviously, who don't want to grant us our rights, but clearly we also need the vigilance within our movement so that we can ensure that we're not, for whatever reason, that we can stop those people trying to divide us.
Yeah, I do agree with you, Maria. So we have one last question. Do you feel there is a place for non-binary people like myself in supporting LBQT women and intersex people? I am conscious of not wanting to speak for the community, but want to be the best ally I can be as well. So, anyone want to answer this question?
I mean, an ally is an amazing ally to, you know, spread the community voices and make them heard even wider, and yeah, share the information, share the resources that is out there that are created by community members, and yeah, inviting people from the community and giving them opportunities and payments and making sure our voices are heard. This is amazing help and support from ally, and we definitely need those kind of allies and this kind of help.
I think it's a great question, Dane. I mean, and I think it's also just to illustrate how our movement and how none of us are just one thing. personally identify as a non-binary lesbian. So it's like we are all in multiple spaces, and I think it's all of our job to be good allies whenever we can. So I think there's absolutely 100% a role for that.
Yes. So we are coming to an end to our session, but I just wanted to first I want to apologize if we could not answer all your questions. Please feel free to reach out to the panelists throughout feed loop and for the rest of our day program. At the last minute, I just wanted to give few time for our panelists to tell us how they see the way forward. And if you could share with us one recommendation or best practice to empower the LBQT women and intersex people, that would be great. Do you want to go first?
Okay, why not? I mean, no pressure at all, just 1 minute going first. Okay, no, I would say that thank you so much for having me here. It's been wonderful. And I am so always grateful and amazingly happy when I is not just included as a letter, you know, in the acronym, but intersex people are actually speaking and the topic of intersex is brought up. So yeah, know that intersex people are here and that all of the problems of people who are against us are connected. Like in the treatment of intersex people, there is so much transphobia and homophobia. So we're all on one side, and know that intersex babies are beautiful and deserve to be as they are and make their own decisions about their own bodies. You can always look for Europe.org. We have a toolkit for parents, a toolkit for allies, a toolkit for policymakers. So there is a lot of resources that you can always find and educate yourself. And yeah, intersex people are not rare. We are all around you. And yeah, non-vital surgeries on intersex babies need to be banned, and intersex people need to be loved and bloom and just be happy and visible. And I'm so happy that we're not alone. And yeah, we're all here to be allies to each other. So thank you so much. And yeah, this was really great. Thank you so much. And I hope everybody will have a great day or time of day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jannat, you want to?
Yeah, I just thank you everyone for sharing the amazing stories and amazing feedback. That's really important. So actually, I just want to give that message of inclusion and diversity. I really love the beauty of this platform that shows me inclusion and diversity. And when we are together, people are ready to give us hope that let's move together, and we are not alone. And people like us who are living in a hostile environment, I think their voices, their culture, their diversity, their indigenous community challenge that needs to come forward. Because sometimes we are talking about XYZ, but we forget about ABC. That's really important to serve them from the basics. Still there are a lot of people who are not aware of this fantasy movement and funding. They don't know about presentation, but their challenges are very different and they have not been reached yet. So let's promise that we will also include those members in our movement so that we are together and we include all colors in our movement.
Thank you, Jannat. Sheena, I'm gonna give you 1 minute.
Oh yes, yeah. It's hard to follow such profound words and such inspirational speakers. But just to echo what everybody has said, we are stronger together, and we need. I think this was said in another space. We need more room in the spectrum for each other, and we need to work from what our strengths are and what unites us, and not so much so what our differences are and why we shouldn't work together. So yeah, and don't forget the internet, of course. Okay.
Yes, of course. So unfortunately, our time has almost up. And I need to wrap up our conversation, but I just wanted to thank our speakers so much for joining us today.